about 24 and a half hours from now. Everybody in Philly wanting to know what's going to happen with Jahlil Okafor. Sean Deveney, Sporting News, spent some time in New Orleans with Joel Embiid. I'm almost more concerned about him. I want to get Sean's take on the big guy and all things NBA. Long-time Sporting News NBA writer Sean Deveney joins me now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. This is quite a photo of you and Joel Embiid here in New Orleans, Sean.
He's a lot bigger than me, I'll say that. My post moves have always required a little more work, I think, and I haven't put in that work. So going up against Joel, I mean, I'll tell you that he's a great sport. I went out there, and you're never sure how it's going to go, because if the guy's not into it, then it can be pretty lame. But he was into it. He was out there working out. Went through a full NBA style workout, and it was great. It was a lot of fun to do. He's a really good guy. So
the news today, I mean, he worked out, but he's doubtful for Friday and Saturday. I mean, is that surprising to you, seeing him down there and seeing what kind of condition he's in? The fact that he's still not ready to play?
Yeah, I mean, what he had said when I saw him on Friday of All-Star Weekend was, that he didn't figure he'd be back right after the break, but that he thought that within a week, maybe 2 weeks, that he'd be back. So that doesn't tremendously surprise me. I think he's eager to get back and get playing again. But obviously, look, there's nothing out there that the Sixers really need to play for at this point. So it's much more important that they be patient with him.
Sean, he was on ESPN Radio Saturday night. They did a Meet the All-Stars thing, and he was one of the guests. He indicated that he wants to try to play back-to-back games before next year, that they have 5 more, he wants to do it. Is that something that you see happening, or did he say that to you at all? Like, yeah, that's a goal that I have for the rest of this season?
Yeah, the way he put it to me was that he'd like to get back to being an NBA player and not having to worry about minutes and things like that. Certainly the production that he's put up in limited minutes, you would like to see what happens when he gets past 25 minutes and when he gets into 28 to 32 minutes, if he plays more than 32 minutes. I'm not sure we're going to see that. Again, they have no incentive to be anything but very, very careful with him, and I think they're going to stick to that. But maybe by the end of the year you could see that. They don't have many back-to-backs left, so there's not much opportunity for that. But there's a chance you could see it. But again, I just don't think that there's a lot of upside for them to test him physically any more than they already have. 5
back-to-backs. Joel Embiid said he wants to try. He just wants to see what it's like, so that next year it's not a shock to him. Sean Deveney spent some time with Joel down in New Orleans. How unique of a player and I guess character for the NBA is this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is that people are just starting to really see that about him, and that was one of the nice things that just kind of getting a little bit of exposure for him down at All-Star Weekend. I think that's one reason he wanted to go was he's felt so cooped up, not being able to interact with teammates and other players from other teams that he's had such limited contact with the rest of the league. I think he really wanted to get some of that in, and like you say, just sort of show that if he continues to build the way he has, and if he can stay healthy, that I think the NBA is going to have the kind of guy who they're going to like to showcase, because he is a guy who understands that as much as it's been about basketball, it is also about entertainment, and I think that's sort of part of his natural personality. You see it on Twitter sometimes, but I think he'd like to show it more real time.
NBA writer from the Sporting News, Sean Deveney. Your take on Okafor. His name keeps coming up. It seems like he's that guy that's connected everywhere, but really isn't a fit for anyone.
Yeah, and I think that the New Orleans trade was a little frustrating for them because, I think that they'd hoped to work on the Pelicans a little bit more. I think they felt like they could have, maybe gotten a better package for Okafor than what they'd been offered before in terms of protection of the pick and things like that. So I think that the fact that the Cousins trade kind of came out of nowhere, I think it surprised them and set them back a little bit. But I think there's two things. One is there's still teams interested. You're still going to have a team like Indiana, for instance, is one that's come up. Certainly you could imagine one team that I heard sort of as a dark horse was Dallas. As an outside possibility, they've asked about Okafor before. So you have some possibilities there. Some of it's going to depend on what else happens with some of these teams involved. But yeah, Sacramento is a team that could get involved as well. So there's still going to be options here in the next 24 hours that are going to present themselves. But the thing to remember is, what's the hurry, right? I mean, there's you'd like to get this situation resolved for everybody involved. It would probably be better, but you're not going to give the guy away because you don't have to. And it's something that you can revisit when the draft comes around. You can revisit it when the summer comes around, when teams are making free agent signings and perhaps missing out on some of the guys they wanted. Well, now you can talk an Okafor trade from a position of more strength. So I think for the Sixers, the approach has been all along that they don't have to do this now. They prefer to, but they certainly don't have to.
Yeah, and there's some reports that teams are re-engaging in Noel talks. He's a tough one, I think, for the Sixers because of the restricted free agency, but he's also an interesting case for the Sixers to keep because he's going to ask for a lot of money. And now with this whole DeMarcus Cousins thing, with the way this all unfolded, teams in this situation are kind of in a tough spot with these guys who are, saying, look, we want big money, so don't sign us because you can't give us the money that the team. I find this to be a really interesting. It's like the two sides coming to a head here, where guys don't want to be traded now because they make so much more money staying with their team, and then you can trade me after I sign my extension. I find this Noel thing going to be a really interesting train down the track here for the Sixers.
Yeah, and part of the issue is he worth that money to begin with, and that's you can sign a guy to a deal that you might find yourself stuck with after he gets it. I think that's one of the big concerns. What we're seeing is, last year obviously we had the big spike with the TV money. We'll have another one this year. They're expecting maybe not quite as dramatic, but certainly you're going to have a lot of teams with a lot of cap space, and we're going to see some crazy contracts. But it's going to level out after that, and I think that's the thing that a lot of GMs are concerned about is, if we go crazy here in these 2 years, are we going to, turn around and 3 years down the road say, oh, we got ourselves into a bind here, and all of a sudden all the cap space that everybody has had has been spent, and now what? And so I think there is some real reluctance here. You're right that it is sort of a perfect storm for some of these guys, but I think there's a lot of GMs who are maybe are a little more cautious about this and have a little more understanding that this is not something that's going to keep growing, indefinitely. It's going to have to reel itself back in after the summer.
Do you see Brian Colangelo making a move tomorrow?
Yeah, I do think that ultimately, like I said, he wants to get something done with Okafor at the very least, and have that situation alleviated. It's obvious that Okafor wants it. I think it's best when you talk about how you deal with agents, how you deal with players, and the level of trust and things like that. I think that's probably one reason why he really does want to get this done. It's just, like I said, best for everybody involved. So yeah, I do think that ultimately somebody's going to come up with an attractive package that'll include a pick and a young player and will be something that the Sixers can live with.
Sean Deveney from the Sporting News. Your opinion on who the biggest name to move tomorrow?
Yeah, we've heard some about Paul George moving, perhaps into the maybe column from the no way column in terms of a deal, and if that happens, it would certainly be a pretty big surprise. I'll say that the Pacers are a team that usually operates with a pretty heavy veil of secrecy, and there's not a lot of leaks. So the fact that has gotten out, indicates that maybe there's some fire to go with that smoke. I still think that even though there's word out of Chicago that Jimmy Butler is not going to be traded, I still think there's probably a 50-50 chance that he gets moved tomorrow. And I think that's something that you could probably expect, because when you have a team like the Bulls and all of a sudden you're hearing things coming out of their camp that says Jimmy Butler, no, we're pulling back, we're not going to trade him, that's probably indicative of a team that's trying to drive up the price so that they can trade him. And I think that's sort of what the situation is with Jimmy Butler. So I think Butler probably has the best chance, but if Paul George does move, I think he would wind up being the biggest name.
Sean, everybody seems to be looking at the Kings trade negatively. Is there any positive spin you could put on it for the Sacramento Kings?
Yeah, it's at least they've turned the page. At least the owner has come to his senses. I think it was a pretty much a disaster the way it went down on every level. But at least they can turn the page, and you can start rebuilding around some of these young guys and get out of this cloud. I mean, if you want something positive, to consider the fact that they haven't been close to the playoffs since DeMarcus Cousins has been there. So it's not like they're going to get farther from the playoffs. It's not like that they won't be able to turn around and win 25 games again, as they've been doing with Cousins in the last couple of years. So to me, that's the big positive, is at least they finally got the message through to the owner that we can make this move and still survive as a franchise. That maybe is the biggest positive. And hopefully, now that owner Vivek Ranadive has been so. He's been a meddler, and he's tried to get in the middle of everything that they do. Hopefully this is a signal that maybe he'll let his front office actually be a front office and make some basketball decisions. That hasn't been the case to this point.
All right, Sean, last one for you. Magic yesterday, Rob Pelinka is going to be the GM there. A little bit of an odd situation, but even more of a difficult situation. Have to fire your brother and kind of end that relationship there. But are the Lakers in the right direction? I mean, this is a model franchise. This is one of the elite franchises in all of sports, and they are coming off of a 17-win season, followed by potentially being the second-worst team again. And no one's going to be worse than Brooklyn, but this, they're a disaster right now. Did they finally rip the Band-Aid off and do what they needed to do? Are they making steps to go in the right direction finally?
I think there's two aspects of it. One, they were already heading in the right direction. I mean, if you talk to scouts and GMs, they've got three guys who are 22 years old or younger on that team who have the potential to be stars, and Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram, and D'Angelo Russell. There's a lot of teams that wouldn't mind trading positions with them in terms of that. But what hadn't gone right with Mitch Kupchak and Jim Buss had been the free agent pitches and the ability to sell the franchise, things like that. That's what Magic is going to do well. So it really comes down to whether Rob Pelinka can outperform Mitch Kupchak as GM. And Kupchak's been there a while. It might have been time for a change with him. They've got a new coach in Luke Walton, who maybe you'd like to get somebody else who can work better with Luke Walton. That's a possibility as well. I think that they were already heading in the right direction, but I think this move is more aimed at, okay, how do we turn the corner with free agents and start being able to sign guys? And in that sense, I think that this does help them along a little bit.
All right. Who won the game, you or Joel?
I'm not going to divulge that because I would never recover my pride.
Sean Deveney from the Sporting News. Check out the article about Tim going one-on-one, literally, with Joel Embiid at All-Star Weekend at sportingnews.com. Sean, thanks, pal.
All right, thank you.
I miss my